Hello, my name is Bob Glatz. I'm the Broadbent Family Executive Director of the Harvard Varsity Club. The Varsity Club was founded in 1886 with a mission to preserve the traditions, foster the ideals, and advance the interests of Harvard athletics. We do this in a number of ways, and one of the ways we do it is tonight by bringing people together from different sports, from different eras, to celebrate all the successes that are Harvard athletics. And it'll be really challenging to find something more successful to celebrate than our career victory leader coach, Coach Delaney-Smith, and a sports celebrity superstar like Jackie MacMullan. So we are in for a treat tonight, not only because they are two of the top people in their fields, but also because they have a little history, and they've known each other for many years, and they are good friends. And I know both of them a little bit, and I have to say, if you haven't met both of them, you will not meet two nicer people in your travels. So we are really going to have a great time tonight. So without further ado, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And I will now turn it over to the Friends of Harvard Women's Basketball head coach, Coach Delaney-Smith. Kathy.
Thanks, Bob. And no, I didn't pay Bob to say those nice things about me, but I will. I know there's a lot of people on with us tonight that I absolutely love. Wish I could chat with you and reach out to you, but I can't. And there's a lot of people that I don't know. So thank you all for coming out and being with us. If you have not heard Jackie MacMullan speak, or if you've only heard her speak on Around the Horn, then she's way more than that, and you're gonna be in for a big treat tonight, because I could listen to Jackie all night. So I'm gonna start by just quickly telling you how our journey began, and I believe Jackie's memory might be slightly different than mine. So your choice to believe the very keen mind of a 72-year-old person, or this riffraff journalist who, has a slightly different memory. But I was a coach and gym teacher at Westwood High School in the 70s. And Jackie was a really good athlete, actually. I think it was field hockey. And I thought she's really tall. She's really actually not that tall, but back in the 70s, she was really tall, and I needed someone tall. And I remember asking her she was a junior, so she hadn't played basketball. And I remember asking her to consider coming out and playing on the basketball team for 2 years, and she did. And so the rest is history. And I will tell you that during Jackie's time with our program, we broke records. We had lots of titles and lots of winning and very little losing. And Jackie was a huge part of that. And her basketball, I'll be honest, was raw. Yes, Jackie, raw is a good word. But what Jackie had was leadership and charisma, and probably at the top of the list, she was such an advocate teammate for all of her friends. Everyone at Westwood was drawn to her. All of her teammates were drawn for her. She was very outspoken regarding what's fair and what's right. And she was like the epitome of what you want a teammate to be. And then she goes on and breaks through the glass ceiling professionally in a male-dominated field where, like it's an understatement. She wrote 1 million books. She, is on TV all the time. Try going to lunch with Jackie, or God forbid, go to a Celtics game, and every 3 minutes, someone wants her picture, someone wants her autograph. I don't even have words to describe what she's accomplished in her field. And I like to take credit that she was not a very good writer till I worked with her and helped her with her journalistic ability. That is not working. No one I tell that to believes me, no one, which is a shame. But I'm so glad that Jackie is in my life, because she has such a profound impact on everybody in her life, professionally and personally. And I don't know if you all have watched her when she retired, her last Around the Horn broadcast. I watched it about 4 or 5 times. I cried every single time I watched it. And it was so evident to me the impact that she had on men, women, in the field, out of the field. And she's done all of this with humility that you don't find in someone who is as accomplished as Jackie. So I love being Jackie's friend. Everybody wants a piece of her. So thank you for joining us tonight, Jackie. It means a lot to me. Thanks.
So Erin Shagru says she believes me and she should. Thanks, Erin. Actually, she's known to you guys as Erin DiVincenzo. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Another Westwood alum and Harvard alum, a rare double, the only double? The only one?
Yes. Yeah, the only double.
Erin, we're giving you some props here. Anyway, so I don't remember that story exactly the same way, but it's close. I want to try out for the team. Everybody did. And I went to the door my freshman year in my Chuck Taylors, and I looked in and I chickened out and I went home. And then I said, well, I'll just try out next year. You know, I was playing field hockey. I ran track. I was playing other sports, but Westwood basketball was a big deal. So I went to my sophomore year and I think I had better sneakers. I think I might've had leather sneakers by then. I looked in the door and yep, couldn't go in, didn't go in. So then, you know, you guys know how it is. By the time you're a junior, it's over. So I was over. So I was sitting in the office down in the basement where my field hockey coach, Liz Rice, and Kathy always were. And I was drawn to Kathy. She had already filed a sexual discrimination suit against our high school by then for equal rights for the girls. I mean, my senior year of high school, we played with rip-off sweats with our names on the back. My God. And they had to do it because that's what they had done for the boys. So she was someone that I was interested in being around and listening to. So the way I remember was you had gone down to the junior high school and you said, oh, I saw some of the players in the junior high school. There's a really good one named Susie MacMullan, who my sister was a much better player than I was.
Oh.
And you said, at least I'll get one MacMullan to play for me. And I remember saying, well, I'll play, because I had no idea you would even let me. And then your face was with utter shock because I'm a junior. And I said, yeah, never mind. It's too late. That's stupid. And you were like, wait, you wanted to play all this time? Anyway, so there you go. So I played on the junior varsity as a junior. I sprained my ankle, I think like the first month. So it was a really auspicious start. But you did move me up to the team for the States, and you actually played me. I still have never gotten over that. That was incredible. I was so pleased. I actually got to play in those games. And then, you know, I was the sixth man of our team that lost the state championship my last year, which I'm not over. You probably are because you won one the next year, but I'm still not over it. So anyway, so I really feel like our friendship or our relationship began well after that, to be honest, because really I didn't know you very well in high school. I didn't play for you very long. And I don't remember this person you're describing as being super outspoken and a great leader. I didn't feel that way at all. I was still trying to find out who I was and where I was going and what I was doing. I think a lot of young women can identify with that when you're in high school, you know, just the confidence isn't quite there yet. You believe in things, but you're not sure anybody else does. You're not sure what you can do with those beliefs. And so I think that's why this conversation is a good one tonight, because I'm sure a lot of the women who played for you, I'm sure there's men on this call too. Everybody has a moment where you realize, okay, this is important enough to me to do something about it, right? And I think that's, I guess maybe that I act as if is your slogan, but I think that's maybe where I would think it would emanate from. So I guess I would ask you, what is the first time something happened that you said, you know what, I care enough about this that I'm going to do something about it?
When is the first time?
Yeah, I know I'm throwing the curveball. That's not one of the questions anyone asked, but that's what I'm coming with out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty quiet and shy in high school. No one really even believes all that, but I have my oldest sister's Down syndrome. So, you know, I think early on, I remember defending her and, you know, really opening my mouth and acting for people that I thought were bullying or doing something mean. And that was thread through my family. And maybe because my sister was Down syndrome, but like, and so I always have believed that if something is not right, then I can fix it. And I remember even at Westwood when I went there, I was shocked how they treated girls and that I didn't have the gym. And I went to take this legal action and everyone said, don't, Kathy, you're going to get fired. You're going to lose your job. You're never going to get another job. And that just did not matter to me. It just did not matter. I just felt that we have to fix things if they're not right. So I guess, I guess that I think it's just been who I have been my whole life without worrying about what's going to happen to me.
Yeah,
So.
well, that's pretty good. So you went to Harvard 1982. I was just graduating from college, actually. And I thought, why didn't she do that 3 years sooner? Maybe I'd have a Harvard degree. Maybe, maybe not. Hard to say. But you got there in your 30s and you, let's just say you're much older now. So you've over that 40-year span, how do you grow and change with the evolution of the young women and the student athletes? I mean, a lot has changed in 4 decades, a lot. How have you been able to keep current with each team that you coached during that time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think probably my longevity is a result of, I just really love a challenge. So generationally, coaching is not even close to the same as it was 10 and 15 years ago, definitely not 40 years ago. It's just completely different. The student athlete is different, better in many ways, harder in many other ways. So, I mean, I think that my leadership or my management or my coaching is just, it's a work in progress. And I'm in my 70s and I hope I never stop growing. And I have seen really great coaches who were peers of mine who didn't last because they don't want to change. We get stuck in our ways. I love to change. I like to look at this generation, this social media, the iPhones and all the challenges that we have. And I want to fix what I think needs to get fixed. And I'll try anything to make the environment better. And I haven't been afraid to do that. And I haven't been afraid to, like, plan A didn't work, let's try plan B. I just always loved the challenge. And I love my student athletes at Harvard. I love coming to work. I don't want a day off. I mean, I do want a day off, but I've just been blessed to love my job. So
you mentioned that student athletes today in some ways are better and some ways aren't. So what do you mean by that? Give me some examples.
Well, I think the student athletes are almost all better. I think that what is hard for me as their coach is how they're parented. I think that I get athletes now that are not, they're all at Harvard. Every single woman I coach is a leader in some way or another. But I don't know that they've been allowed to practice that leadership the way they should, independently of parents interfering or micromanaging them or helping them with adversity. So I do feel that this generation struggles with communication skills at times, struggles with handling adversity, taking criticism, because I think there's been over-parenting and micromanaging and trying to make everybody gets a trophy. That's the big difference. And then I think social media has taken its toll, like the self-focus and the damage that social media does with these kids. And is it this generation's fault? No, absolutely not. But I think it's very problematic.
So I think that makes me think about mental health, and which is such a hot topic in this culture today. And it should be, because mental health has existed all along. It's just that we weren't allowed to address it in the past. So I'm wondering, for you as a 21st century coach, how much dealing with the mental health of your student athletes, how big of a part of that is that of your program and your responsibility in today's culture?
Yeah, I would say that almost every coach would tell you it's a major part of what we do on a daily basis. Everything from anxiety to depression to, everything. And now COVID has doubled it or tripled it. And we talk about it here at Harvard all the time. Like, we just need more mental health workers. Our kids can't wait 3 weeks to get in to talk to someone. They got to get in sooner.
Right.
And so mental health affects performance. So if my job is to coach teams to win, then our kids have to be mentally healthy. And so I would say it's more than half my job, definitely more than half my job.
Yeah, no, I believe it. And yet it's still an evolving culture, isn't it? Mental health, because it is, I've said many times, if you have a mental health issue, it's every bit as serious as a torn ACL. And yet society doesn't quite see it that way still, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, Jackie, like how, as a woman, and not that this is mental health, but it's a little bit associated. How did you break through the glass ceiling in a male dominated profession as a woman? And I'm sure you took it on the chin a number of times about whether you should go in the locker room or like, how did you handle that adversity?
So I think the best thing about it was that I had no idea it was coming. I just wanted to write. And so that's what I did. I did an internship at the Boston Globe. You weren't allowed to be an undergraduate and do those internships, but because I was playing basketball at UNH, I couldn't do them during the school year like normal journalism students. So I deferred my graduation. So when I went to the Globe in the summer of '82, I had graduated. I had the credits to graduate, but I didn't officially graduate so I could be considered an undergrad to do the internship. And then once I got there, I just didn't leave. I mean, I was working in the news. I worked the 7 to 3 shift, and then I just stayed there all day because I wasn't going to school. I didn't have a job after that, you know? So I think what happened was that I was there enough. I hung around the sports department the whole time. My best friend to this day in my industry is a guy named Ian Thompson. He was the sports intern that summer. There was only one sports intern, and there were 18 news interns. And I knew that the only woman, the one intern was not going to be a woman. Not then. We're talking 1982. That wasn't going to happen. So I just wanted to get in the building and hang around the sports department. And this is actually what I would call kismet, because the first story I ever wrote for the Boston Globe sports department was on you. And you probably don't even know that.
Really?
Well, you got the job at Harvard, and
Shockingly.
and I went to my boss and said, hey, I know this woman, and you know, she just won all these, you had just won championship a couple of years before. And I'm like, this is kind of unbelievable. She's gonna be the Harvard coach. And he said, all right, you can write something, because he wasn't that interested in me or you, frankly. So anyway, I wrote the story. I interviewed you. I interviewed a bunch of people, and I wrote this story. And, you know, they didn't give it very good play. It wasn't on the front cover of the sports section. It was in the back somewhere. But, it, you know, they ran it. And then he started kind of watching me after that. He liked the writing, you know, I guess. And so at the end of the summer, by then he kind of knew who I was a little bit. And I said, I'm young, I'm cheap, I'm a girl. I've wanted to work here my entire life. I'll do anything you want. And he said, all right, come back in a month. I'm like, what? He said, well, in the meantime, we'll have you cover Saturday football or whatever. So just by being around that newsroom, that sports newsroom, I showed up early, I stayed late. It's just like anything anybody does, right? Just like when you want to be a great basketball player, you know, someone puts up 300 shots, you put up 1,000, right? It's the same kind of thing. And so Will McDonough was the one that noticed it, you know, and he started asking me questions, and he called me kid. He called me kid up until the day he died. I was in my 30s when he died. He still called me kid. And someone like him, if he starts to believe in you, then you have instant credibility in a city like Boston. And then he introduced me to Red Auerbach. And then, you know, then I got to know Larry Bird, and those 3 guys in the city of Boston. You can get those 3 guys in your corner. And I wasn't trying to, but they all appreciated the value of hard work, right? They all appreciate, all 3 of those people understood the sacrifices of staying, or, you know, getting there early and staying late and doing your homework. And there's no magic formula for any of us, right? No one wakes up in the morning and says, I think I'll be a pioneer when I grow up. Nobody does that. Not that I know of. If there is someone, please let me know in the little column here. Someone does that, because that's not how it happens. So let's get back to you though, because this isn't about me, it's about you. So last time I saw you with some of your players, was a while ago now, not the last time I saw you, but with these two young women, you were talking about writing a book, yes?
Yeah.
And I don't know where that stands. So can you tell us, I kind of have an idea, but why is it important for you to do this book? And what is the message and what is the purpose? Other than, sharing your life story, which is very interesting. I have a feeling there's a deeper purpose though, yes?
Yes. And it was years in the convincing of, because I was never really, I mean, because I have such great stories of very accomplished, even / famous people at Harvard, which could never go in a book, but they are great stories that I maybe can only talk about during alumni weekend. But so people have always wanted me to write a book, and I'm like, why? What's the story? I was never convinced. So right now I'm collaborating with Laura Barnard, who played at Harvard, and Ann Heffron, who was from Westwood, and I was her gym teacher, and she was close friends with Aaron Shagru and DiVincenzo. And so it was those two that finally convinced me that what we have here at Harvard is quite special. And I really thought every college has this. It's kind of done the same way. And in the research that we were doing with my alumni, which you all know I love you if you're on there right now, each one of them had some very profound and impactful things that have affected them. And, this was a great classroom for them. And they're at one of the best universities, if not the best university in the country. And yet being in the basketball program was part of their education. And so, that and the empowerment of women and the building of community in women is really quite special. And I just never realized how special it was until we started to talk and do the research. So I think there's a message. I think you're right. My career path has been rather non-traditional, to say the least. I never really played basketball. And so I think
wait, stop right there. That's not true. You were the first player in Massachusetts history to score 1,000 points. So that's not true.
Okay. Basketball as we know it, I did not play.
Okay.
Basketball as we know it, I did not play. So I really wasn't qualified to get the Westward job and then have such immediate success without, I was like a fish out of water, just reading every book and acting as if. Actually, Jackie, you probably know that you were, one of my big experiments. I had to learn on the job. I didn't have a mentor at the time in the 70s. I was just experimenting on every team I had, and it worked. And so some of my management / leadership style worked, and and all my mistakes, no one's holding them against me. And so I guess there's a lot of great learning that's going on. So I think that's the message, is like, why has it worked? Why did it work for me at Westwood? Why did it then again work at Harvard? Because again, I didn't play college basketball, but yet something about how I coached or how I led has made an impact on people that is a classroom, is a life skill. And so that's the message. It's about empowering women. It's about fighting for equity. It's about building community. And, I think it's quite special what we have. And I think if you take my alumni and tell each one of those stories in the book, it's pretty interesting stuff. And so I'm very excited about this collaboration with Ann and Laura.
So when you started researching this book, and what do you think it is? What is it about you that makes this work? What would you say it is? We'll probably hear from some of your players, but.
Well, I think that they would say, so I believe.
No, I'm not asking what they would say. I'm asking you what you think.
Okay, I think it's that I'm very authentic. I think that the foundation for how I coach is relationships, and they always have been. I have cared about my players from the day I started at Westwood, even though it might not always show. I think ultimately each and every kid I coached knew how I cared about them, even if I took their head off or threw my clipboard at them, which I did once at Westwood, to Ann Deacon. Yeah, I'm so sorry for doing that.
She deserved it. She was hurt and she wasn't supposed to be in the drills. She deserved it.
She might have deserved it, yeah, but I could have been fired for that for sure. And I try really hard to build relationships so the environment is one of trust. And so in that you can use tough love, in that you can, build an environment that, you teach skills that last you, resiliency and communication. Again, I got to move communication to the top of the list for whatever reason, because we text so much. I don't know that we talk well with one another, eye to eye, face to face. I think the media, social media has done some damage there. So again, these are the kind of things that I work at. And I think the bottom line for all my players, they know how much I love them and care about them, even if I make a mistake.
So you've mentioned mistakes 3 times in that answer. So I'm wondering if there's one mistake in particular that you've thought a lot about that changed the way you went about things.
Actually, no, there wasn't one. I will analyze everything. Like if I lose a ball game or win a ball game, I am my biggest critic. I will review that in my head and look at what I did and what I didn't do and sort of learn from it and move on. I'm
thinking more, I'm not talking about in-game strategy. I'm talking about, relationships is absolutely the hallmark of what has made you a unique and exciting and established and successful person. Was there one relationship early on? There's got to be one, or a situation that you look back all these years later that you say, man, I wish I had done that differently.
I
And you
can't
don't have to name
one,
names if you're uncomfortable with that,
So, at Westwood, for example, Nancy McDermott, I think was at a Hall of Fame. I was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I didn't call the right timeouts in this tournament game. And she was an older player and I was a new coach and I did not know what I was doing. And Nancy said to me that night at this little thing, you might have been there, Jackie. And she said, I could see right through you, Kathy. You did not know how to call the timeouts. And I'm like, and she was right. So I could have, been mad at her or been hurt by that, but I think my nature is to be more accountable. You're right, Nancy. I didn't know. And what coaches are vulnerable? What coaches are accountable for who they are and where they are? You know what I mean? I think so. I remember, and then I remember taking all my Westwood relationships and saying, I have such an impact on these young high school kids. I'm sorry, I'm just a gym teacher. No one taught me how to impact their lives by my facial expressions or by my words or by my actions. I was overcome by the power of sport and the impact it has as a classroom. And then I end up at Harvard, where I think everyone is brilliant. But again, there's that impact here too. I've had players here. I remember not starting a player and I didn't give her enough warning that I wasn't starting her. And she literally told me I ruined her life. And she didn't get over it for weeks. So, I have to analyze that and be accountable for, that's the impact I'm having as a manager, as a leader. And it's in sport, but it's probably in life too, in business, in every I can't say it, hierarchy. Couldn't say that. But it's so, and I don't know if I'm trained or anyone's trained to deal with that.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. So I think we should try to take some questions from all these people that have taken the time to show up this evening. How do we do that, Stroudy? Did we lose Stroudy?
I know I was given a question that I get asked all the time. I don't know if Kyle's on here. She was a wonderful player here. She's a doctor now. I think she has 2 children, just had one. She's always asking me what act as if means and what is the difference between act as if and imposter syndrome. And so I'm gonna, and I know one of my beloved alumni helped me with this to verbalize it better. But so Kyle, if you're on there, Imposter syndrome is an outcome and something that happens to you because you're thrown into a situation where you don't feel you're qualified, or you don't know what's happening. It's an outcome and you're a little bit more of a victim. Act as if is entirely the opposite. It's a proactive action. It is an intention to create an environment that includes behavior and qualities that you want to have. And so that's the big difference between those two, Carl. So don't ask me that again.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So let's see. If you guys want to ask a question, go to the Q&A box here and I can click on it and see if you have any. Do I have any questions here? Oh, okay. So here's a question from Savannah Rush. And she says, hello, I'm a current student at Harvard Business School, and I'm very keen on one day becoming involved with professional women's sports. I'm curious what you both think is the next frontier for women's leagues and what you think the biggest barriers are, which is actually a really good question. So Kathy, I'll let you answer first.
Oh, that's the hard one. So I think the frontier. So I think money, unfortunately, it comes around to money. And so I think women have to support women and network. First of all, network and support women. So my dream for women's sports at the professional level and all levels is we have better spectatorships. Like, I want the world to enjoy watching women athletes perform as much as they like to watch male athletes perform. And we are not there yet. And that gets tied into the bottom line, which is the almighty dollar. So that's our challenge. And I think it's just about women empowering women and supporting one another. Like, how many of us watch the WNBA finals, for example, because that's my sport, but like we have to start watching and supporting women's events. At Harvard, I want the women to come to women's basketball games, women's field hockey games, as much as they go to any men's events. And again, I don't think we're there yet. So that's my sad answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it is everything. And when you're talking about professional sports, which is what the question was about, whether it be soccer, softball, basketball, it's got to do with television revenues. That's where all the money comes from. And the WNBA is a decent TV package, pretty decent TV package. Pales in comparison to the NBA, obviously. But I remember asking David Stern, who was the former commissioner of the NBA. I was in London for the 2012 Olympics, as were you, as a matter of fact, because you saw your ex-player play. Temi was playing for London. And, the women dominated, the American women dominated all the sports during those Olympic Games. So I called David Stern and I said to him, so what is it going to take for the WNBA? Because he was a fierce, fierce defender of the WNBA, much more so than Adam Silver, quite frankly, who's the current commissioner. They were not going to fail on his watch. He wasn't going to bail on them. And he said to me, if you look at the NBA itself, its first 20 years, nobody went, nobody paid the tickets to go see it. These things take time, and it's hard to be patient, but that's what everybody needs to be, because the building blocks have to be put in place. And I think the worry with women's athletics is, and again, the television networks, they're all impatient people. They want the money now. And so that's the rub, that's the challenge. But Stern kept saying to me, women's tennis, think about it. Before Billie Jean played Bobby Riggs, which was a hoax, it was a carnival, that event. And a lot of these guys are too young to remember it. Before that happened, women's tennis, the Virginia Slims, they couldn't get enough money. Their only sponsor they could get were a cigarette company. And so after Billie Jean and Bobby Riggs, that was the tipping point. Women's tennis took off, and we know how it's gone since then. Serena Williams, I would argue, is right up there with Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. She's absolutely on par with them. So you need that tipping point, and you need the television revenue, and you need patience, which is really hard for everybody. I understand that, but it's just some of those things happen. You just have to hang in there with it. And that was Stern's message to me. I thought it was a good one. So, okay. This is a question for you, Kathy. given two equally skilled athletes, what do you look for in your recruits? What is going to tip the scales?
It's probably skill. And in a given year, what your program needs, but like, let's just say all things are equal. This is athleticism, shooting ability, like just outright skill, size. That's what
Okay.
we look for at the
But what
division.
about
level.
equal skill? So they're both the same, they both have
Oh,
the same skill. So
Then
what's
I
the difference?
I watch players when they're not in the game. I watch the players on the bench. I want them supporting one another. I watch them if the coach is reaming them out. I watch if they have eye contact. When recruits come for a visit or an unofficial visit, I watch how they treat their parents. If their parents are talking too much, are they rolling their eyes? Are they interrupting? Are they respectful? Like, so all those intangibles are very, 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 very important to me. And I will somehow test them for loyalty. I will ask them about, who's their favorite coach, who's their least favorite coach. And if they're really readily giving me their least favorite coach and all the reasons why, it's not a deal breaker, but goes on the list of red flags.
Okay, excellent. Okay. I was a player at a school that's known as the smaller Harvard, Stonehill. This is from Kristen McDonald. Our coach there, your mentee, Trish Brown, was a giant proponent of the act as if mentality. My question is, how much mental health is at the forefront right now? Have you had to soften the as if message in situations that you would previously have pushed that message through? That's a good question, actually.
That is, and I just had a conversation with the player, and because I'm a big proponent of tough it out. And there are some of my athletes over the years that you have to know when they shouldn't be toughing it out, when they have to step back and take a sabbatical or take a day off yeah, so it's a fine line, and fingers crossed, I hope I can know my athletes well enough that I'm advising them to not tough it out and step back. And I often will say at a place like Harvard, like, do you need a day off? Do you need a sabbatical? Do you need time off? Like,
Really?
So with the AAU program and the sport of women's basketball at the Division I level, like, burnout is real. Burnout is, physically and mentally. And so I try to pay attention to that. I try to practice less, shorten the practices, understand an athlete that's going through that if it's a particularly tough academic time. Now, but I want them to tough it out too. So that's a fine line we walk, for sure.
Okay, very good. Let's see. How do you encourage your players to learn to be comfortable with vulnerability? You seem to grow and learn with your ability to own your mistakes. How do they see that as a connection to their own personal growth? So in other words, I guess, do you reveal vulnerability to your players? Because old school, in the old days, right, that would never happen. You couldn't show any weakness. You couldn't show any vulnerability. That was considered a weakness.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. I think I always have, because I love humor and I love to self-deprecate. Probably when I was young, and maybe even now, I might self-deprecate a little bit too much, but it's humor to me. So that's sort of my style. I was probably self-critical and criticized by others in my professional growth all these years for not being authoritative enough, being a little bit too publicly vulnerable. And then Brene Brown came on the scene, and the world is crazy. Most people who read all of her books and her style, which is vulnerability and accountability, is like, and I felt it validated intrinsically who I felt I was professionally through all the years. I didn't do it by design. It's just who I am. And that was my style of coaching. And so I felt validated that it was okay for me to just use this particular style, because Bobby Knight and, It's My Way or the Highway was sort of big in the meat of my professional years. And that's actually not who I am. If people say, well, what's your weakness as a coach? I would say, I'm too nice. I think I'm too nice. I want to be a little tougher. Now, I don't know if my athletes would say that about me, but that's my self-critique.
So one of the other questions I have, this is just a question, just because I've been around so many coaches, you included. How good are you at leaving work at the door?
Not.
So
no.
how does that manifest itself in your personal life and in your goals? And, is it something that you feel that you should be better at, or is that just how you have to do you can't turn it off like that?
I think it's hard to turn off, but I think I've actually struck some work-life balance, but it's not without a lot of hard work. I'm a big fan of meditation. Way back when I got the Harvard job, John Kabat-Zinn, who's one of the foremost people for medical meditation. And then I took a course with him in the early 80s, and he's sort of my foundation for all of the sports psychology stuff I've done at Harvard. And so I use it in my private life, and it allows me to leave it at the door as best I can. I have a lot of passions. I love tennis. I love biking. I have a lot of passions outside of basketball. So, I think now, and probably over the last 10 years, I have good balance. That isn't to say that if one of my student athletes is struggling, I don't think about it all the time. Or if I have a loss that I don't like, that I don't think about it all the time. I do. So
I mentioned before we came on here that I had done a book with Gino Ariema, and one of the stories he told me was about a young girl that he brought onto the team. I'm not going to remember who it is. It was at the very beginning of his career. And this was a girl that he really liked. She was personable. They got along great. When he was recruiting her, they had a really excellent rapport. And when she first got to campus, she was struggling a little bit. She was far away from home, and she would go into his office or call him about some things. And then he started to realize, okay, I'm enabling this young student,
Mm-hmm.
And then she called him up and said, oh, coach, I'm having a problem. I've got this paper due tomorrow, and oh man, I'm just really stuck. And he said to her, we'll get unstuck. And he hung up on her. And I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong, but I wonder if you've had similar experiences where the recruiting process, you're trying to get this student athlete to fall in love with you, your program, the school, and then, then it's business, right? So I wonder how you balance that.
Yeah. Well, again, I think my coaching is relational, so I try really hard to know my student athletes. And so basically, your academics should not interfere with your basketball, and your basketball should not interfere with your academics. So don't come in and have a lousy practice and tell me you stayed up all night and wrote a paper. I'm not interested in that. So that's just the way it is. So I hope I know my athletes so if someone really is struggling, I hope I know them well enough to know that they need a break and that I will cut them some slack. And I haven't had athletes that milk that. I have, again, my alumni say to me, I have great instincts in choosing great women. And, as I look at my alumni and we come back for alumni weekend, we're fun. Like, I think I do have great instincts to pick very talented, fun women who have won lots of titles here. So, and then when my old alumni meet my young alumni and there's an instant connection, like, again, I must be drawn to the same characteristics, because it's a phenomenon here that we have with our network.
Okay, very good. When was the first time you realized you had to transform your style to meet the changing needs of players? And when was that? And did it get easier as you went along?
I think that's an ongoing awareness for sure. Like, I didn't have a crossroads. I didn't have an aha moment where, oh, Kathy, you're really bad at this. I think it's just, I'm really open to growing and changing and tweaking. And I'll be the first one to write a practice. And I already had one this year where, like, it was a horrible practice and my players were horrible, but I had written a horrible practice. And I think I probably told them that at the end, that it was my fault as well as theirs.
And why was it a horrible practice? What did you do that you shouldn't have done? Or what did you not do that you should have done?
Two things. I wasn't focused properly before the start of practice. I was distracted by something that had gone on, and the flow of the drills wasn't really as like I like it. And I just know immediately when that happens. So, I hope they appreciate that it's their fault, because it doesn't matter. The practice is really them. It's not always me, but I want my players to work hard and love practice. That's why you play sport. You got to love it. It's not a business here, even though the world thinks it is. It's not.
Right. So one of the other things I've always wondered about coaches, especially, pro coaches, it's a whole different thing. But you college coaches, all of you, I don't care if it's Division 1, 2, or 3, your livelihood depends on 17 and 18-year-olds. I mean, sometimes, right? Yeah. Because one 17 or 18-year-old can destroy everything you've tried to build culture-wise or camaraderie-wise, or a DUI, or, well, I don't know. I fill in the blank. So can you describe what that's like and what kind of pressure comes along with that?
Yeah. I guess I'm going to just say I am the president of the Clueless Club, because I have never worried about that.
Wow.
And that is I know, and I feel blessed. But that is like what John Kabat-Zinn taught me, to be honest, is to stay present. I have had seasons where we didn't win a title because I had one bad apple on the team, and that affected the leadership, that affected the energy in practice, that affected our ability to connect with one another. But I'm driven to just reach my personal goals. Like, I think I don't worry about being fired, or I don't project the future. I stay present today. I'm going to take care of today, and tomorrow's going to happen. And that's meditation. That's John Kabat-Zinn. That's how I coach. But all around me, there are conversations where our lives are in the hands of 18-year-olds. And if she's having a bad day, or she fought with her partner, or something happened, and then I can get fired. And I've seen my friends get fired by those kind of situations, and it's quite sad. I just have never thought about that at Westwood or at Harvard. Neither.
Wow. I just remember one night when I was a sophomore in college, and I had 6 beers, and we had to practice the next morning, and I was crappy in practice, and I felt bad about it, and I never did it again. But I remember thinking, oh my God, this, maybe that's a revelation for us as athletes. This is a responsibility, and I didn't fulfill that responsibility. I was at a semi-formal. It wasn't my fault. I had no idea it was at Kowloon. It was too far away. I didn't know.
It's not your fault that you had 10 million beers, Jackie. No, it's
I
never.
only had six.
Only 6 beers, yeah.
Well, it was over a long period of time. I just want to say that. Okay. So I would love to hear both of your thoughts about Dawn Staley's new contract. 96, Susie, I'm gonna butcher your name. I apologize, Susie. Susie DeLellis-Petroselli, class of 96, women's soccer from Harvard.
Yeah, Jackie, you answer that one. Do you know it? Her contract's great.
It's awesome. Yeah. It's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, something just happened. I just lost you. Can you guys see me anymore? Hello?
Yeah, I can see you.
Somehow I can't see you guys anymore. Oh, there we go. It's progress, man. And it was well-deserved. I mean, talk about a badass. She's the best. Mm-hmm. She's the best. She wins. Talk about loving your players. The respect she has across the board is tremendous. We need more of that. We need more of that. And I think it's coming. I really do. I really think it's coming. It feels to me like we're headed that way.
Yeah, I was Dawn Staley's assistant coach for the Pan Am Games with the USA program, and she was the head coach. I was the assistant. She had the courage to torture Stanford's star center at the time, that if she didn't make it across the line in these running drills, then we weren't going to move on, and she was going to run the entire team to death. This particular player, she will remain nameless, and I can't remember her name right now anyway, but she physically did not have the physical ability to cross the line and achieve the running time. So it didn't matter to Dawn. She just was a hard ass, yeah. And eventually teammates physically dragged her, carried her across the line till they accomplished the drill. And
Well,
I
maybe
don't know
that
a
was
lot of,
her- maybe that was her intent.
yes, oh,
To have her
absolutely.
teammates, right? You know?
I absolutely, like, I just have so much respect for her because of that.
Yeah, I think she's been great for the women's game.
Yeah.
She's, you know, what I like is there's more, we talk about more, you know, once the money started to get good in women's athletics, they started having more men come, as you know this. I'm not telling anything you don't know, because there was money to be had. But the one thing that I think's been a good development is there's been more African-American female coaches, which is, again, long overdue. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. When will we see a female head coach in the NBA or Division I college coach, Division I men's college coach, female? And would you be interested, Kathy, in coaching a men's team?
At my age, no, but, and if I was younger, yes. But I do think coaching men is very different than coaching women. And I think there's the correct match. My belief is, you know, I've always hired almost all women my entire career. And so, and now I have a man who's an associate head coach in my program, and he's phenomenal. He's one of the best there is out there in the country, not only here at Harvard, but he's phenomenal. I'm a believer.
Mike Rue. Come on, say his name.
Mike Rue, he's been with me 7 or 8 years, and he's phenomenal. And I know a lot of people were disappointed that I hired a man, but to be honest with you, I think we need allies. I'm all about empowering women, but you know, you have to look at the situation and the variables you need. And at the time he checked every single box, and it was the best thing I ever did for my program and for me. And so I think there's a need for both. I think men and women coach differently. You can speak to that in media. You know, I think I asked you that, Jackie, about if we need more women in media, what does the gender bring that's different and why? I think in coaching, there's a need for both. I think in politics, there's a need for both. I think in administration and teaching, we need both men and women. And I hate to see one exclude the other. I hate that happens.
And I think the NBA coach, female NBA coach, will happen also. Not as soon as probably everybody would like, ever, right? That never happens quite that way. And but these things come in waves. The Black head coach in the NBA was incredibly underserved as recently as 2 years ago. And then the Black Lives Matter movement happened, and the players responded, and they said, this matters to us. And there was a rush of coaches that, by the way, all had deserved to be hired long before they were, including Ime Udoka in Boston, Jamal Mosley. There's a bunch of them. You know, Wesley Unseld finally got his chance. I'm going to leave some of them out, but Willie Green is another. And so these things come in waves. And should it happen that way? It should just happen organically. But that's just not how the world works. So someone will hire a woman as a head coach, and all I hope is they hire her because she was the best candidate, because she was who they wanted, not because they're trying to make some kind of political statement or trying to be, you know, politically correct, or just trying to, you know, cause some buzz for their team. But they're going to hire them because they deserve it, because there's plenty of women that can do it. There's just no doubt about that.
Right.
So, all right, I think we're close to maybe just one more question. Okay, as a longtime leader of people, Kathy, what are your 3 biggest pieces of advice? 3, not 2, not 1, but 3. This is Jess Gelman sticking it to you right here to help maximize someone's potential. Just putting you on the spot. 3 biggest pieces of advice.
Be genuine and true to who you are, because in leadership or management or whatever it is in coaching, one size does not fit all. So be true to who you are and be genuine. Build relationships. And in doing that, you have to use vulnerability to create an environment of trust, especially in an intense environment like coaching where, you know, I can't keep everybody happy. You're not going to start. I'm not going to play you enough. You're not going to be my go-to, whatever it is I'm doing to disappoint you. If I don't have a relationship with you for you to handle some of the decisions that I'm making, then we're not as strong as we can be. And I think this is not well thought out, but I'm going to say laugh. Learn to laugh. Like, let's not take ourselves too seriously. You know, mistakes are fuel for your future. Like, learn to laugh at your mistakes and learn to grow, and, you know, and look outward and impact all the people outside of yourself. You know, none of us are that important or that so big.
Yeah, that's good advice. Aaron Chagru says you should have added shower daily, which is probably true.
Shower daily. And brush your teeth. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Brush your teeth. Okay. Well, I think, should we take one more? You want to take one more?
I'll take one more.
Okay. Is that all right with you, Strad? I know we're going over, but okay, here's a good one for you, I think. Which coaches in any sport have you most admired and why? I like that question. That's an interesting question.
This is the hardest question for me.
Well, you don't have to, you know, just throw a couple names out there.
So I'm going to start with, Kelly Graves in my sport. Kelly Graves, and I'm not even going to be able to tell you the schools yet, but I love his style of coaching and his relationship. And these are men, I'm sorry. I love Don Staley. I love, and I like Mike Neighbors and how he shares. I think he does a great job. At the professional level, I like, I'm blank on his name, the Celtics coach who had all the talent and he was great at managing and not great, and help me with his name.
Casey Jones?
I loved Casey, but he just managed.
Oh, Brad Stevens, you mean?
And I love Brad Stevens, definitely. I think.
But I'm not naming the right Celtics
No,
coach.
there's one more. He's
Chris Ford.
Nope.
Doc Rivers.
Yes, Doc Rivers. I loved Doc Rivers.
Yeah. Doc's a good dude. Doc's got his hands full at the moment.
Yeah, no, I like Doc Rivers when he was with the Celtics and what he did. I mean, Casey will never be considered a great coach, but he had, I mean, managing egos is managing egos.
Well, he was the best at it, the best.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, the famous story was at the end of a game, in a playoff game, they get to the huddle, they're down 1, and Bird walks into the huddle and says, Casey, man, just give me the ball. And the rest of you, just get out, just give me the ball. And Casey said, sit down, Larry, I'm the coach, sit down. And he said, get Larry the ball and get out of the way. That was it. Everybody laughed. Larry went out, scored the game winner. Game's over.
So I watch the WNBA coaches because I'm interested in their style. And I noticed that Sue Bird does a lot of coaching and Diana Taurasi does a lot of the coaching. Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic for me to like pick coaches, you know, that's the whole package.
Yeah. Sue Bird actually spent an off season working in the Denver Nuggets office and in their coaching staff and doing some stuff. But I think her life has exploded. You know, she and Megan together, the possibilities are endless. I'm not sure what I think Sue would make like a great commissioner. She's one of the smartest people I know. She's fantastic.
Yeah. And humble and
oh, just the best.
Yeah.
I told her I want her to be the next commissioner of the NBA. That's what I want her to do.
What is of the NBA, not the WNBA?
No, I'm going, the NBA.
You're just okay. Okay, good. Yeah.
She's ready. All right. Well, this was great. Thank you very much to everybody. I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions, but you guys, there's a lot of them and we're out of time. But thank you again for showing up. And I'm going to go shower now because I haven't showered today. So thanks for reminding me, Erin. And Kathy, it was fun to do this with you. I feel like this is what we do all the time, just not with everybody else listening. So it was fun to have some other people to bounce our ideas off.
Yeah, so Jackie does come to a handful of Harvard games, and when she comes, everybody wants beer in the lounge afterwards, and they have no interest in talking to me whatsoever. They just want to sit around and listen to Jackie. So Jackie, thank you so much for coming and being such a supporter and great friend. Thank you.
Thanks for the Harvard sweatshirt too.
Okay, yeah. You like the hoodie or?
No, this long, you didn't give me a hoodie. You gave me that nice long sleeve one.
Okay,
Remember, I
I did.
wore it to the wedding in Newport just the other day. I was pretending I went to Harvard. No one believed it, but I tried. So anyway. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.